Talk Show.
Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to the Castle Dracula Podcast, the Bad Chimney episode. On this podcast, we talk about horror movies, vampire movies, and all-around awesomeness online at castledraculapodcast.com. And today we're taking on the 1984 horror comedy Gremlins, directed by Joe Dante. Bear in mind that if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have, so warning, spoilers ahead. I'm your host, Jason Henderson, author of Alex Van Helsing, Voice of the Undead, currently out from HarperCollins. With me are Drew Edwards, the creator of the long-running horror webcomic Halloween Man, which you can find at halloweenman.com. Tony Salvaggio, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars and writer of comics like Psycom from Tokyopop and Clockworks from Humanoids. And I didn't stop to say hello, Drew, so say hello, Tony and Drew.
Hey. Hello, Tony and Drew.
and token female, I swear to God that is how she wants to be introduced, token female, Julia Guzman. Say hi, token.
Happy holidays.
Outstanding. Okay, Gremlins, and hello, everybody. All right, Gremlins is a movie about a young man who receives a strange creature called a mogwai as a pet, which then spawns other creatures who transform into small, destructive, evil monsters. It all takes place in a lovely little town at Christmas time, and it is insanely full of references to classic movies and even folklore and all of that, as you might expect from a film produced, as this is, by Steven Spielberg. So, I've long since given up trying to give a long synopsis of the movies because it's just enough to make me want to stab my head in the fork when I go through that stuff. Thoughts on Gremlins? This is such an exciting movie to be doing at Christmas time. This is cool. This is probably our last Christmas episode, our last December episode, probably the last episode of the year, so I'm very excited. I want to get first impressions of, and it's so strange to talk about first impressions of a movie that we probably all saw when we were kids. First impressions of 1984's Gremlins. Drew, talk to me about Gremlins.
Talk to you about Gremlins. Well, I remember, you say we have to go back to kids. I remember going into a movie theater as a kid and seeing the second poster that they did, which had the open box with Stripe, the lead gremlin, bursting up out of the poster. And such a hideous image. And my parents actually, strangely enough, they let me pretty much watch every other horror film I wanted, but they forbade me to see Gremlins until...
How old were you? So weird.
Geez, how old would I be in 1984? I was 33 now. Somebody's better at math.
What year were you born is the question.
1978.
1978. So you'd be 6'6". 6.
Okay.
Which is too young to see Gremlins. I have to say, first of all, if you're going to believe in Santa Claus, it's too young to see Gremlins.
They let me see Aliens.
But Aliens doesn't reveal the truth about Santa Claus. You see,
that's true. That's true. It just has chest-bursting aliens.
When you live in the Santa Claus Politburo, you have to watch carefully, and the stuff that what the regime does is often inscrutable to the subjects. The stuff that you end up censoring is censored for reasons that only the regime understands. Yeah.
When I did finally see Gremlins, I was both delighted and horrified. I mean, I really get off on the sort of, as I've brought up in previous episodes, I have sort of an antisocial quality to myself, and the sort of malicious nastiness of the Gremlins is something I find myself enjoying upon every subsequent viewing. And of course, when you're a kid, it kind of plays into the same fantasy play area of your brain that the Godzilla films do. It's the idea that you could just wreak havoc and get away with it. But
absolutely,
watching it this time, and as I have watched it as an adult, usually around this time of year, this is probably the perfect Christmas horror film. I mean, most Christmas-themed horror films are incredibly cheesy, incredibly just, they usually involve some, they're all derivative of one another. They involve some lunatic in a Santa costume. Well, this, as you pointed out, it both celebrates Christmas and yet it attacks it at its Christmas tree roots.
Right.
And that about it is fascinating. Like I think I said over the weekend when I was gearing up to watch this is definitely to me the ultimate Christmas horror film.
Yeah, everything else is like mostly it's slashers, and this is a horror movie that happens during Christmas.
Yes.
About how people are reacting to Christmas, as opposed to like, oh look, it's Christmas time, and here's a guy set to ruin it.
Right. Or here are some props. Here is a sort of a derivative Christmassy kind of angle for that.
Yeah.
This is not that at all. No, continue. I'm sorry. Tony, first impressions, Gremlins.
I think I saw this in the theater. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure. It's so good. It's just got and I hadn't seen it. This is another one I hadn't seen in a while that I don't know why, but I just haven't. And there's just so much awesomeness to it. Also, I used to be since it was so hard to see movies when I lived in. My parents moved us from Texas to Mississippi when I was really little, and there weren't any close movie theaters. So I actually collected and reread novelizations, and Gremlins was one of those.
Did you keep those things? Did you keep those novelizations?
I have a lot of them.
I am a huge fan. I'm thinking of starting a collection, going to trade shows and flea markets and just starting collecting esoteric novelizations.
Well,
stuff.
The cool thing about them is they're all the director's cuts.
Fair warning.
They want to release the novels at the same time as the movie. So you don't have time to tell the person. So Aliens has all the stuff that's in the director's cut. Tron has all the director's cut stuff. All of that. And Gremlins, I'm sure, has something if there were cut scenes. I'm sure they were in there, and it's been a while since I've read that novel, of course.
Yes, they're usually written from the working script. So they might even have a different ending.
And on a horror movie note, there was a collection of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
The Dream Warriors is whatever rewrite they did. I actually think they improved it, but the Dream Warriors novelization it's nothing. There's Dream Warriors in it. There's Freddy is in it, of course, but holy cow, that's about it. So actually so I had the novelization. I've probably read that I don't know how many times, and over the years seeing this movie, it's just great. And it also, the cool thing about it is it spawns so many wannabe films that are some of them are actually good and some of them are good bad, and a few of them are just terrible. But because it was so popular, it spawned this whole crazy little creature subgenre.
Do you think is that the case? Is Gremlins where things like the Ghoulies and all that stuff came from?
Oh yeah,
Critters.
Absolutely.
Critters, which scared the crap out of my sister, my poor sister, who watched it far too young. And Critters takes place out in the sticks, which is where we live. And my brother and I loved Critters and just thought it was crazy and awesome. And my sister was just deathly afraid of Critters for a long time.
That reminds me of a movie called Goblins, which is this extremely cheesy movie filmed either in Canada or in the United States, just over the line, one or the other, and it's out in this small country town called Nilbog.
That's Troll 2, by the way.
Is it really?
Which there's a documentary called The Best Worst Movie, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Troll 2, really bad.
Nilbog is Nilbog is just as bad as what's the Dracula?
Alucard. Yeah.
Alucard, yes.
Which they drink Nilbog milk. Anyway,
before we get too far.
Yeah, but yeah. You know, I don't know. Gremlins is just great. I mean, there was Gremlins cereal.
Yeah.
I still remember the jingle for, which I always find fascinating because, like,
Gremlins is certainly,
you know, there's math formulas I don't remember, but hey, if you need me to recite the Gremlins cereal jingle, I know that. Thanks, brain.
I actually had to ask Julia the other day the Light Bright theme. Because,
that would be yesterday, yeah.
Awesome.
And of course, I remembered Light Bright, making things with lights.
Awesome.
That's the part I remember.
Yeah, but hey, you know, if you need to know some algebra problems, I've thrown that out. I know Gremlins bite after bite. That's great.
The worst part is when you know classical pieces because of the commercial jingles that incorporated them. Like you know, what was it that oh shoot, now I'm forgetting. It was like like some What I know what it is. Smurfberry Crunch is fun to eat.
Oh yeah. God, even better.
Yeah. No, it's true. The Smurfs introduced a lot of us to Tchaikovsky. I learned about Tchaikovsky from Benny Hill, so, you know, what are you going to do?
A Smurfy fruity breakfast treat made by Smurfs so happily. Something else. I don't remember the rest. No.
Awesome.
Anyway, yes.
Take that.
So,
big brain.
Julia, what are your first thoughts on Gremlins?
Well, I did see it. I was actually, let's go with 6 when I saw it as well. No.
Really?
I'm going to go with 6. But I got to see it when it came out. And I remember thinking it was really scary, and now I'm just like, God, this movie's hilarious. It's like not scary at all. But it's awesome. I do love it. And it's been very much a fixture in my like experience of, you know, movies, and I actually still to this day, anytime somebody turns on the light, like and it's dark, I'll go bright light, bright light, bright light. I just can't not do that. So apparently that was a very influential film in my youth, when I was 6, and I like it a lot. It's really, really, really funny, and there's so many great things, and it's not gory, which is awesome, except for the part where the various destructions of the Gremlins themselves, but there's not.
Right.
Now, I really wish there weren't any. I really wish nobody died. I mean, that's the only thing. It's like I think it would be a much more innocent sort of movie if nobody actually died from if they just had like near deaths or injuries.
That does take some of the stakes out a little.
Well, and as Drew is going to tell us about, the movie that you're looking at is kind of a compromise between the two visions. The Steven Spielberg vision of everybody gets out without, you know, the G.I. Joe style. Everybody's going to get roughed up, but nobody's going to die. Versus the original Chris Columbus script, which was
just really gory.
A lot grislier than this, you know, and darker.
Quite a bit. Well, for one, in the original script, Stripe and Gizmo were in fact the same character. Gizmo becomes Stripe.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And
that would be so dark. Think how dark that would be, because you've introduced Gizmo, you like him, and then he turns bad. And you know, so now you're in Pet Cemetery territory where the good little guy. Yeah.
Well, the way the Mogwai become Gremlins also is that they eat the dog.
Oh, geez.
And Mom does not get out alive in the original script.
I can see that. It's close anyway.
Oh, I had heard that actually. That Mom's head travels down the stairs to.
Awful.
I am the opposite of Julie, because I love Gremlins. I wouldn't change a frame of it, but I almost wish there was an alternate version, like an alternate reality version, where I could see the script that was just pure. Because I love the nastiness of Gremlins. Like,
well, you kind of want to see two versions, in fact.
Yeah,
I
appreciate the version that we have, but I wouldn't mind like the one that was dialed up a notch.
I'm
like
suggesting
that's because you're a horror movie fan and I'm not. So to me, it's like
right.
this is not really that much horror.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting two more divergent versions. In other words, that what we're looking at is sort of a smashed together bundle.
Yeah, you want
movies.
like a Disney version and a horror version. Mm-hmm.
Right. You know, I think you could do that. Yeah, you could probably end up making one that 8-year-olds could watch. But anyway, my first impressions of this movie. Now, I saw this movie. I don't know how the heck old my wife is, but I saw this movie when I was in high school. And I remember, I think that I was probably slightly too young to have gone to see it in the movie, because I don't think I saw it in the movie theater. And I remember when I was a freshman in high school, this thing was all the rage. I mean, everybody was watching it on VHS. So people were naming their cats Gizmo, and you know, it was the thing to talk about, and everybody was watching it. And I still find it charming. I found it charming then. I find it very charming now. I love what that backlot looks like. I think it's the universal backlot, and how Christmassy it is. You know, I love this Hollywood vision of Christmas. It's beautiful, you know, and I love how much this thing loves movies. And back at this time, anytime Joe Dante was let near a camera, some character was going to be watching like an old Howard Hawks movie or some cult film or another, you know, and that goes on again here, where they're watching they're watching It's a Wonderful Life, and they're also watching a Clark Gable movie that I didn't recognize. But that's something that, you know, was happening in every one of these. And have you guys noticed they don't do that anymore? I mean, you don't see people in the movies just like kicking back watching classic movies while the plot goes on.
If it is, it's because they're making a point of like, look how hip I am. I like these movies. Oh wow, you're that movie guy who likes those movies.
Whereas at the time, these movies were like, to some extent, you're dealing with an auteur. I mean, so, you know, this is Joe Dante's vision, and that's the way things are in this movie. It's the way things are in Explorers, which is really a kid's film, truly. And, you know, it's the way things are in the sequence of the Twilight Zone film that Joe Dante directed that looks so much like Gremlins that it's crazy. I mean, but it is so fun. It is really fun. I love the Gremlins. I had completely forgotten how fun they are. You know, all the crazy different things they get up into. I love the little puppets. I love the special effects in this. I mean, there was nothing here for me to dislike. This is probably one of the most enjoyable movies I've had a chance to watch for the podcast so far. So,
yeah, and also for me, two things were, if I did see it in the theater, and I'm going to say that I did. I can't be positive, but
were you 6 as well? Were you 6 as well?
Yes. Probably 6 the same way that you were 6, actually.
Why? Can you explain to me, why is this the movie where suddenly we're hiding our ages? I don't get it. We've been talking about Tron.
You're right. Truth be told, I would have been 11. So let's just throw that out there.
I find it odd that never mind.
Anyway, so my grandparents, my grandmother used to take me to movies, which was still like 30 minutes away from Hearn, Texas to Bryan, Texas. And, man, we would go, they took me to so much stuff and so much that my parents probably would have never let me see as well. And the other thing is 84, like, looking back, it was just such a crazy year. It was a crazy year for movies. It was a crazy year for music. Like, all these bands I like started in 84. Or were just getting their start in 84. I don't know. It was a crazy cool time.
It really was. I mean, there was also, yeah. No, I remember 84. So what year did Top Gun come out? Do you remember? Was that 85?
I don't even.
It's important because there's this.
That was one I never
this.
really wanted to see until I saw it and was like, okay, that's the thing I've seen.
Oh, 86. I'm sorry. Top Gun is as late as 1986. You know, yeah. But think of it. You know, without Top Gun, Tony, you and I would not have the story of Don Simpson, who has really been.
True.
That's been a personal story just to teach Tony and I how to conduct ourselves in life.
And,
Dante's,
arguably,
yeah.
we wouldn't have had Iron Eagle or its sequels.
That's true. Or that Firebirds, which starred Nicolas Cage and gives Julia something else to look forward to seeing. Yeah. Firebirds. I think that's the first time anybody's even thought about Firebirds in 10 years. All right. By the way, Nicolas Cage pilots a helicopter. That's that movie. So, Gremlins. Let's get started. We'll just go kind of through the section of it. We'll talk our way through it. Feel free to diverge. Feel free to correct. Feel free to go off and go back and talk about Dracula's daughter if need be. It doesn't matter to me. All right. We start this movie out with country western singer Hoyt Axton as the narrator. I love Hoyt Axton ever since he showed up on WKRP and sang Della and the Dealer and the Dog Named Jiggs. I love Hoyt Axton. I like his voice. And he's here as this just completely wackadoo inventor who I have to admire his tenacity, will go anywhere and try to sell anybody the many little knickknacks that he carries around with him. And he's in Chinatown to sell goods into little stores and also to find a present for his son. And he walks into Charlie Chan's antique store, and he picks up what is it? It's basically
a mogwai. Oh.
It's a mogwai. It's a creature that he has never seen before, that nobody's ever seen before. And the grandfather says, who's running the store, says, "Oh, mogwai, not for sale." And he says, "I'll give you $200." And the grandfather is, no. But the kid, who I guess is the brains of the operation, says, "You know what? Hey, mister, here's your exotic animal. I'll take the money under the counter. My grandfather didn't want me to sell this exotic animal nobody's ever heard from before, but I'll." And the kid gives the dad these very folkloric rules right away that are. Does anybody want to volunteer what the rules of the Gremlins are?
The rules are, let's see, it starts out, never feed them after midnight.
Yes.
I think that's the first one. He says, no, well, maybe that's not the first one, maybe it's the last one. But anyway, it says no bright light. He doesn't like bright lights, and sunlight will kill him.
Yeah.
Don't get him wet, and definitely don't give him a bath, and never, ever feed them after midnight. To which Rand Pelter says, "Oh, yeah, whatever," which I assume means he hasn't actually heard a word of it. But then when he goes to repeat the rules to his son, he states them very specifically and very seriously and sternly.
Yeah.
So apparently he got that they were big. It was a big deal, even though he kind of just blew the guy off when he was saying what they were. So.
He totally absorbs it. And right immediately we are in folklore territory, because when you get down to the point of, sunlight will kill it, I could believe that's definitely folkloric, having to do with demons and things like that. But, sunlight kills vampires, sunlight is a magic elixir in all kinds of stories. But, especially this business of, just particular ways you have to act with this creature, that you can't feed it after midnight and so forth. That reminds me of Chinese folktales, usually involving demon lovers. A young man needs a wife, and a beautiful woman appears to him and says, "I'll be your wife, but you must promise me that you'll always allow me to be alone between 4 and 5, or whatever." Just she'll have these very specific rules that don't make any sense except in the fairy tale universe. And inevitably, of course, you don't have rules like that in a story unless the boy's going to violate them. And he always violates them, and then bad things happen. And so what the heck is a mogwai? Can anybody tell me, are these things, I'm not trying to be stupid, but in the universe of this movie, what is a mogwai? Is this a demon?
I think it seems like some ancient Chinese creature, something from the old world. Although it's weird because Gizmo's so good, and then anything that comes off of him, I don't know if it was selective. Okay, we've gotten rid of all the bad mogwai. We've totally eradicated them, or who knows, they may still live in the woods. I don't know. And this is the good one. But we know if any mogwai come off of this guy, bad news.
Yeah.
Even if they don't eat, after midnight, instantly, they're just the most obnoxious.
They're mischievous. Yeah, they're mischievous.
I mean, they hang the dog up by the light.
They are. They're prone to chaos. I mean, they are very. These are demons.
But they are going to become the gremlins of folklore.
Well, they want to become gremlins.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know. They actually orchestrate it so that they chew the wire to his clock so that he doesn't know that it's midnight, and then they're going, hungry or whatever they're saying. I know I have to say I absolutely love how they talk and how they sing and everything. It's hilarious. Even after they're gremlins, they talk hilarious. But before that, we're just like they're yum. I guess kind of like an E.T. thing, which of course is the E.T. theme is just predominant throughout this whole movie, where they have so many different allusions to E.T. But one of them being just the way they talk, like yum yum.
Yes.
I was doing it at the grocery store today, going through, just going yum.
Well, let's talk about Gizmo for a second. So Gizmo is because we don't have to go through the whole synopsis of the movie. I just want to call out the key elements. Gizmo is a totally cute little creature, and he is good. He is basically good, even when the other creatures are, basically Corey Feldman, who, by the way, is an excellent little actor. Okay, Corey Feldman spills water on Gizmo. Gizmo creates a few more little creatures, but Gizmo's the only good one, and he sits there reading his comic book and shaking his head sadly when they're getting up into mischief.
And he's even offered food after midnight, and he's like, nope, nothing.
I have a strong suspicion that even if Gizmo became a gremlin, he probably would be the only benevolent gremlin as well.
Yeah, you're probably right. Oh, what do you think about the puppet?
Man, those animatronics are, I will have to say, that is pretty amazing.
They are.
And it has been a while since I'd seen it. And, it's a puppet nowadays, but holy cow. So much better than so many other things, and so much better than tons of CG I've seen.
Exactly.
Well,
I don't know that you could do much better.
Yeah, I was just thinking, they could have done a new Blu-ray of Gremlins with the CG Gizmo and
Gremlins, the CG Gremlins.
This, please, never, ever. Of course, luckily Spielberg even admits that it was a mistake to change E.T. the way he did. So.
Yeah. I think I can't imagine Joe Dante would do that unless somebody waved boatloads of currency to do it.
These effects were considered groundbreaking at the time. So
I think they're pretty groundbreaking now.
They still look great.
Well, these are the best. This is the best in terms of, strictly speaking, a horror film.
Yeah.
Excluding the ones in Gremlins 2, which I think improve on what they did here. Outside of the Child's Play films, these are the best puppetry I've ever seen in a horror film. I mean, the animatronic puppets in here they're characters in the movie. They all have their own personality.
His little nose moves. They've got different puppets for different things, right? But Gizmo's nose flares when he talks. He has so many different points of articulation.
So expressive. No, but not just that, but think about, the scenes with all the gremlins, the one in the bar and then the one in the movie theater, those are amazing. The one in the bar is just really, that's something else. That scene is just something else because there's so many of them and they're doing so many different things.
Okay, let's tell the audience what this is. This is an extended sequence in the middle of the movie. Once we've introduced all the characters, and then we've got a bunch of gremlins, and then they multiply like crazy until basically there is an army of gremlins who are going to try to destroy the town.
one of them gets knocked into the YMCA pool.
Yes.
so it multiplies.
Yeah, Stripe, the master planner, evil gremlin, creates many, many more of himself, and then they go and hang out in a bar for an extended sequence that's really just an excuse for gags, and that's all it is. It is one gag after another, and they are good gags. There's good stuff. I saw Bluesman Gremlin, with a crazy blues hat.
Gremlins playing poker.
Yes, Gremlins playing poker. A gremlin puppet with two hand puppets.
Uh-huh. That's hilarious. Who, by the way, gets shot by the blues gremlin.
Yes. There's a breakdancing gremlin, and there's
no, the breakdancing gremlin starts out as what does he start out as? Like he's dressed
Flash
up,
dance.
huh?
It's flash dance, isn't it?
Flash dance.
Yes,
starts out
yes.
doing flash dance and then goes into breakdancing. That was hilarious. Yes, because he's dressed as a girl. That was so funny.
It's insane. Yeah, there's a gremlin dressed as the girl in the way that Drew Barrymore dressed E.T. as a girl.
Mm-hmm.
They've got hundreds of these creatures that are a variety of effects going on at one time.
Weird slasher gremlin.
The slasher gremlin was hilarious.
Yeah.
They're wonderful. It's just, and of course, like a character on the Muppets, Phoebe Cates, who plays this delightful girl who works at the bank and also works for free at the bar and is also a loving person and also kind of starting to have a romance with our main character.
And has a horrible story about how her father died impersonating Santa Claus.
Say that for a second. Phoebe is working the bar with all the puppets, and it is so funny. It's ridiculous. At this point, you're watching this movie and you're like, I can't believe what I'm seeing, because this is not. We're not even in the realm of horror anymore. We're genuinely in.
This is Looney Tunes stuff.
Yes, it is crazy Looney Tunes, and even to me, it reminded me of Scooby-Doo. I mean, because at the same time, since there's like 1,000 of these guys, they're also like moving across the town, and so there's a bunch of them that are Christmas caroling. That's really truly like in Scooby-Doo, where suddenly the ghost figures out how to like put on sunglasses and play a guitar. I mean, these gremlins have grabbed scarves and little ski hats.
By the way, I also find it really amusing that they're like, hey, look, you guys who were in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, how about Judge Reinhold?
Yes,
Kate, why don't you be in Gremlins? Because that's the same. That's something else you should pair up for.
I have no idea what Judge Reinhold must have thought he was getting into. Judge Reinhold plays the vice president that our hero Billy works for, and he's a prize dick, and but not so much a jackass that he won't sit and have a drink with our hero. So everybody hates one another.
He has a drink with him to insult.
Knife.
Huh?
What?
Yeah, but his having a drink with the hero is to twist the knife.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
Like, it's not altruistic.
No.
He's a jerk.
Well, no, for sure. But there's still like it's just sort of odd that that everybody's so. Or rather, it's not odd. I like that about this movie. I like that they're like, it's so. This is something about the 80s that you just go ahead and do all kinds of shorthand and go, okay, I know I want all these set pieces, so how about if the girl works at the bank and also at the bar? And how about if everybody also hangs out at the bar? And everybody does all their business right on this one main street. And this is a good time to talk about Phoebe Cates. So,
which by the way, is kind of like, hey, kids who've seen Gremlins, years later, you're going to want to see Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You're going to have a crush on her for a totally different reason. And you should totally see that movie. But right now you're 6. So enjoy the Gremlins.
Right.
Until you're older. And then watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
So yes, Phoebe Cates, who has her own memorable bikini strip scene in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Although, what a bummer of a movie, man, sometimes.
Yeah.
But we could do a whole nother show. It doesn't quite fit this podcast on how 80s like comedies and certainly 80s sex comedies often came with a real sort of like grim dark side that I really can't.
They just threw that into Gremlins, which is pretty dark. Especially her character. Geez.
Yeah, if it's a okay. So, Julia, you wanted to talk about it. So tell us. What Phoebe Cates is the girlfriend who mysteriously doesn't like Christmas, and he goes, "You don't like Christmas? What are you, Hindu?" And I'm thinking, or Jewish? There's any number of reasons.
Anything.
But no, it turns out later on when they are besieged by Gremlins, she stops and tells her story in like the busted up bank where they work in the daytime. What is the story she tells, Chaya?
She says, "Man, bad things always happen to me on Christmas Eve. One Christmas Eve, my dad didn't come home, and like we were freaking out for like days. And then I went to light the fire, and I smelled something in the chimney, and I thought it was like a dead raccoon or something. And the cops came, and they pulled my dad out of the chimney, and he was dressed as a Santa suit, and he was carrying all these presents. He was going to come surprise us, and that's how I found out the truth about Santa Claus." It's like, holy crap.
The worst way to find that out.
I know.
Well, possibly. I'm sure there's worse. But in the
no, I think that's
small
pretty
town
much the worst.
America, that's pretty bad. Like
yeah.
I mean, okay. First of all, it's really ballsy for them to put this story into this movie because that's a classic story. It's right up there with any number of urban legends, like the woman who goes to answer the door because the blind man is here and she's naked and she opens the door and he's actually carrying blinds and he's not, any of those like crazy stories that Brun Von used to collect and everything. This is one of those. This is a story that got told a lot. The dad's going to go down the chimney, he breaks his neck, he dies. They don't find him until the smell drifts into the house.
Oh, right, yeah, he slipped and broke his neck. That's what it was.
Right, and so that's here it is. All of a sudden, they bring out this story. I mean, she may as well have started by saying, when I was a kid, my grandma died while we were on a trip, and we had to like wrap her up and put her on top of the car. I mean,
she got run over by a reindeer. Actually.
It actually would be really funny if every few scenes she pulled out another urban legend that she insisted happened to her.
Nice.
When I was a kid, I got a bottle of Coca-Cola and had a rat in it.
Oh, nice.
It actually would be cool if later on in the script they wandered by her house and her dad was totally alive, and she's like, I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, no,
that's Julia's version. Like, no, he died. It's great. I just say that for effect to be the
I'm
weird
just
girl.
crazy. No, but it's
red
dark.
flag. It's like that SNL thing. Red flag.
Oh yeah.
So Joe Dante puts this story in, and Drew, I think you know something about this. Joe Dante puts this story in here, and who knows, maybe he thinks it's a neat homage to the urban legend or whatever, and Spielberg does not want this story in there. Isn't that the case? Or do you have
Spielberg, near as I could tell from the special features, what we ended up with, which is a compromised version, which is absolutely works. I like I said earlier, I wouldn't change anything about it. But Joe Dante, had just come off from doing The Howling, and at that point was mostly known as a horror film director, and the script that he had signed on to do was more of a straight-up horror film.
Interesting.
And, once they actually saw the design of Gizmo and the designs of the Gremlins, the Warner Brothers and Spielberg and a lot of the people involved wanted to sort of dial back on the darkness.
Yeah.
And honestly, though, like I feel like, to me at least, that is what makes this movie interesting. Is that it is so fanciful, and appropriate for a holiday setting, but at the same time, it does have this darkness at it. And I don't know specifically about the urban legend thing, but I can imagine that would be something that Spielberg probably would have wanted.
What I've read, the only thing I've read to add to that, and I also want to mention in a second, The Blob, which fits into what you're talking about. But so it's a dark story. All of a sudden, everything comes crashing down because she tells a story about how her dad died, and it's a gruesome death. If we're going to take it seriously, which there's no way in hell you could, but it's gruesome, and so Spielberg was like, this suddenly just kills the mood, and because he's always pushing to keep it lighter. This is Spielberg with his happy hat on. He has two variations of himself, and so he wants to cut this story. Dante insists that it stay in, and this is one of the ones that he wins. He lost a lot, and he also won a few, and keeping it in and I think some of the bad reviews of this movie, I believe, stem from this story being in here. I think it left a bad taste in the mouth of a number of the critics who were like, well, this doesn't fit with the overall mood. But, as we talked about, it's kind of a schizophrenic movie. And I think the fact that it's so schizophrenic is probably one thing that makes it the cult film that it is, that people remember. But how when it's falling apart, when the town's falling apart, and especially when Billy, I keep wanting to call him Charlie because he reminds me so much of the guy in Fright Night, but when Billy goes to the cops and he tells them the story and they're not listening, that's at the same time that the Gremlins are just heading across town. That's when it really does become the Blob. I mean, it's so much like the Blob.
Can you blame them? Can you blame the cops for not listening to that story? I mean, he walks in and he goes, okay, my dad got this little creature in Chinatown, and it spawned all these demons, and now there's like 1,000 of them, and they're about to take over the city. It's like,
I noted, though, that these are the worst freaking cops ever.
Yes.
Like, they see everyone dying. They're the opposite of the cops in Monster Squad. They're the exact antithesis of those cops. Those cops somehow jump on monsters with no just cavalier attitude, no care in the world. These guys are like, man, stuff is messed up in this town. They're like, I'm going back home. There's eggnog. I know where the whiskey is. I know where the eggnog is. And you know what? Screw the town. We're
you're right.
Like, they are the worst. They're the absolute worst. They don't believe anything they hear. They're like, and when people are talking, they're just like, hey, I'm going to get drunk on the job. What? We're small-town cops. They're the absolute, they're terrible.
No, they are. What I mean is, if you go back, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
I have to say, one of the things I enjoy about this movie, even though it's not exactly true to life, is how readily everyone just accepts Gizmo as this weird creature that you've never heard about or seen of. Like, if I were to go over to somebody's house and like, oh, this is my new pet, I would be like, what the heck?
Especially
is
if
that?
it sings and talks.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be pretty freaked out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I could understand, like, the, whatever Corey's character's name is, being like, hey, cool, I'm young, this is, this is cool.
Everything
but, like,
is new
the science teacher who's like, wow, that's weird. Hey, let me borrow this for a while.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it in my classroom and do experiments on it.
Oh, no,
right.
But listen, I totally believed the science teacher's take on it because he's like, I want to run some tests on this thing. But you're right.
But without telling anybody. Like, it's usually you'd be like, hey, other science teacher or scientist I've encountered in college, you will not freaking believe it. At least, even if he doesn't say what it is because he's afraid that they'll take it, you can imagine he'd at least phone up and be like, I have no idea what I just got, but, man, I'm going to publish some stuff that's going to blow this out the water. Like,
I want to read a line.
Not Peace Prize, Nobel Prize, like, science time.
Yes.
Hands down.
No, it is, and that's really when the movie is at its most sort of horror, because when the thing is like, when the swarm of gremlins is moving across the town, that's when it's most like kind of, again, it's really hitting all the notes of the Blob, and I love that is, because I love that movie. That's a movie I could watch over and over and over again, and it hits every note there. But when we're in the whole set piece in the high school, from the killing of the teacher to like Charlie in the high school, which has become essentially an abandoned funhouse, that is scary. And hey, did you notice, Tony? We've talked about this a million times before. Did you notice how this movie is built into sequences?
Oh yeah.
Just like every Cameron movie, it just goes sequence, especially by the end where it's like high school and then, whatever you have in there. I know that you've got like, okay, then you've got the bar, and then you've got the YMCA, and then you've got the movie theater, and then you've got the department store, and it just goes bam, 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 one set piece after another. It's really it reminds me as a writer how you can organize your stories around the set pieces, and
right.
just keep things moving. That's really, I really admire that about the script. So yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are we going to talk about flow?
You can talk about anything you want. All right. Evil.
I was
we have
back
a
through
few minutes.
Mrs.
Let's hit on Evil Mrs. Deagle. Yes.
Evil Mrs. Deagle, who is
yeah.
either, I can't decide if I think she's doing a Miss Hannigan impression, but you said there was also a very strong Wicked Witch of the West.
Oh, there's so much of the Wicked Witch
of the West. Like, from just the way they, like, play her little kind of theme when she's talking and she threatens the dog, like, it's like, holy
she's
cow,
gonna take
when I was
dog.
younger, how did I miss this Wicked Witch of the West thing? Because it's awesome.
I remember feeling sorry for her when she dies as a kid, whereas now as a grown-up, I'm like, no, I remember, I have a better memory than I did when I was 12, and so I remember back to the beginning and going, no, I don't feel sorry for her. That's a witch.
You're not supposed to. She forecloses on people's houses and stuff.
Right, right. But when I was 12, I felt sorry for her because by the time you get around to seeing her get killed, she's no longer dressed the way she was. She doesn't have her wig anymore, and she's not actually being mean to anybody at that particular moment.
Well, and she's in a wheelchair going up her stairs, or a chair stair, whatever they call this. I mean, a stair chair. I kept expecting her to turn around and just go, "Kiss my grits" to somebody from.
Yes.
That's
right.
Alice Sage.
She was Flo. Yeah, on Alice. And I think at this time she had already spun off onto her own short-lived series, Flo's Yellow Rose. I think I can guarantee you it's the first time that show's been mentioned in the last 10 years. Seriously.
But she was horrible. She's like, just kept claiming that her heart was suffering. Oh, my heart.
Oh God, she's awful.
Well, she's very much an 80s horror kind of character, in which that they will make you hate a character as much as they can before they dispose of her or him.
Mhm. But they don't do that with the poor guy that was the guy that was all scared of the gremlins.
No,
that one he didn't have it come in at all. Him and his wife. I mean, that was horrible. That's one of the. Yeah, the one with the Deagle.
They don't die.
Yeah, they do.
No, they're in Gremlins too.
They're in Gremlins too?
They survive? Wow.
Yes, they survive.
How do they survive getting run over by a snowplow?
They're even the ones that call the cops. They're even the ones that call the cops. It says it's the Futtermans. Something about an accident with a snowplow.
Oh, I assumed that maybe the neighbors had called and said, "I found the Futtermans crushed to death by their farm equipment."
Because when we see
they are most definitely in Gremlins too.
Wow. So that is not clear from this film, because when we see it, what it looks like is that Stripe has driven the snowplow into them and through their house. So not only has he run them over with the snowplow, but also crushed them into their own walls.
Yeah.
Is what it looks like. So there's no way they could have survived that. So
I'm
I don't know
with
how.
her. That was what I got as well. So I'm shocked to hear that they're alive. So good for Dick Miller that he gets to come back for another movie.
Have you guys not seen Gremlins 2?
I've never seen Gremlins 2. No.
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
but let me reveal
we're doing that down the line.
Apparently they just showed that at the Austin Alamo last week.
Yeah.
Gremlins
awesome.
2 is actually really, it's really good.
And they made actually a good Nintendo game off of it too, which is rare for licensed games. But that game's fun.
I there's something, Drew says that he learns something strange about my personality with movies every week. So this is the one for this.
I don't think you said strange. I think you're adding strange.
Right. Something anyway,
strange.
Here's another weird rule of Jason.
Jason wears his weirdness on the inside. I don't know if you knew that.
No, not so far on the inside. But I almost never watch sequels. Weirdly enough, it's not like a religious thing or anything, but I tend to watch the first movie and then never get around to watching any sequels of anything. So, yeah.
Jason was at I have to say what that's from. Jason was at a conference, like a Comic-Con or something, and there was these women like totally in their super vampire, costumes or whatever, and one of them said to the other, "This guy wears his weirdness on the inside."
Yes.
So of course I've never let him live that down ever because
that was
such a
it
great
was so
quote.
sweet of them. It was how they were letting their friends know that I was okay to hang out with. It was very sweet. You know, I appreciated that. They were playing Love at First Bite, by the way, on the movie theater there, and
great movie.
We should do Love at First Bite.
Ooh.
That is a movie that carries its own challenges today. I understand why it doesn't get screened a lot because it has a lot of a lot of the racial stuff in that would never pass today. No way in hell.
You know, I was reading when I was doing my quote unquote research for this podcast. Gremlins has apparently a lot of charges of racism against it, and with the Asian character, certainly I can somewhat see it. They're not necessarily like racist per se, but they're certainly stereotypical.
They're totally stereotypical, but they're only in the beginning and the end. So I mean,
But apparently the black science teacher had some. There were some people that took issue with that, even though I was.
What's wrong with that?
Why?
I don't know.
I'm missing the significance here.
I mean, he may fall into like the whole, joke in horror movies about the brother dies first kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than that, and that's a trope that you can argue if it's on purpose or not, depending on the film. But other than that, I mean, he is one of the smartest guys in the movie. Like,
yeah, no,
I don't
the
want
smartest
to turn
guy
into
in the movie.
I have friends, but how is he? I don't understand how people take offense at that guy.
No, that's idiotic. I will totally buy.
He's race specific, to be honest.
Okay, but we've gotten completely off topic.
He's just a cool science teacher that the main character goes to.
But we can talk about. We should talk about Key Luke, who plays the grandfather. So yes, Key Luke, once Charlie Chan, by the way, 80 years old at the time of making this movie.
I thought he was number one son. Was he Charlie Chan?
Was he number one son? Is that the way that works?
I
maybe he was.
All I know is that his listing on IMDb starts in 1930 something. It's like, oh my God.
Right. He did those Chan movies. Anyway, this guy'd been around a long time. He was Master Po and Kung Fu. So yes, he is playing a go-to magic Asian person. That's true. I mean, what are you gonna do? You could easily level that. It's worth looking at. That it's not a very enlightened.
No, is that what you? So you guys were talking about this movie? I thought you were back on talking about the other.
No.
Okay.
Key Luke plays. Yeah.
Right. No, I know who you're talking about now. I thought you had.
I'm with you. It's kind of a limited. I mean, who cares really? I mean, well, I guess some people would care very deeply, and I'd love to have that argument, but I don't have anything really to add to it, because I get that it doesn't. This is not a reflection of the Asian American experience, I don't think, in any meaningful way. On the other hand,
whatever insult it does whatever insult it does to political correctness with the representation of Chinatown and this particular person, it sort of makes up for by the fact that the science teacher is like the only. He's the only black character, but he's nothing black about it. I mean, there's nothing particularly, racial
there's
about
nothing
him.
He's just an actor who's been cast in this role. And by the way, Key Luke gets to deliver the moral, which is essentially an environmentalist moral, at the end of the movie, where he says,
"You Westerners ruin everything."
Yeah, exactly. You Westerners ruin everything. It's almost exactly that. And maybe you, Zach Galligan, 30-year-old freshman, you someday maybe you may be worthy, and okay. That's fascinating. I'm glad you brought that up, because I if we have any listeners who are interested in discussing that, I would love to hear it and address it more. We should do final thoughts.
Well, but there's still a couple of things that we didn't even touch on.
I know, but we're coming up on the end of the hour. So what do you want to talk about? You tell me. And, I wanted to talk about because I did think, okay, maybe the guys whatever the guy's name is who didn't die from the snowplow. They don't die, but that science teacher, that's pretty horrifying. I mean, what happens to him? When he puts his hand in to feed the little gremlin, and as I told Jason, I said, doesn't he know that you don't bite the hand of the hand that feeds you? He's just groaned at me. But anyway,
I just think he wanted payback for the shot.
Yeah, well, not just the shot, but just for, like, imprisoning him and whatever. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, but that was just gruesome as all get out. And then he's like,
nothing happens. It's not gruesome. It's scary.
Gruesome, it's gruesome idea. It's not. They don't show any gore. It's not gory. But it's a gruesome idea that he's been, because he's gone. I mean, the guy is like half consumed by when they show up. He's half out of the box, and the other half of him is presumably like eaten. I would guess. I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't know. I think
we don't see, but it's just I don't know. So those are pretty horrific, I guess I should say, concept. And then you've got the well, let's see. Is that the only one that aside from Mrs. Deagle that we see? What happens to them?
Well, they certainly try to kill
the mom. The mom who rocks.
Okay.
She's a badass
we do
character.
need to talk about that
her.
sequence. We do need to talk about the mom sequence because that is amazing. Yeah, okay, think about this really quick. I'm not going to talk about what happens in the scene. Julia can describe it, or Drew, or Tony, but if this were to be shot by a much more indulgent director, and I mean no disrespect, but if Quentin Tarantino were to have been trying to shoot this movie, I guarantee you he would have gone a lot farther in terms of attitude and choreography for how the mom manages to kill in like 90 seconds 5 of these things or whatever it is.
Well, no, she kills 3, and then the son kills a 4th, and then that's what does the 4th.
All of that.
So she goes through in a minute. She goes through the food processor death. She kills one with a knife, and then she microwaves one.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, I mean, I remember
and at one
that.
Point, she picks up two knives. She's walking around with 2 knives, but there's never a moment when you don't believe her as a real woman at the end of her rope protecting her kitchen. That was awesome. I mean, it's really, really great, and it's such a great choice as opposed to, I don't know, having her be a lot more badass or any of that. So.
Well, and then the son takes the sword that was kept falling down and protects mom. So that was really nice too.
No, it's nice. It's a really cool sequence. And yet, I noticed when I watched in the movie theater, or at least back whenever in 84, I remember the scene going by extremely fast. And now the scene goes by at almost a leisurely pace. It's funny, but it really takes its time. I mean, editing and everything has just changed so much since between.
Well, and then the one that gets out is the one, I guess it's Stripe maybe, is the one who goes in and reproduces in the YMCA pool. And for whatever reason, I guess once the gremlins have already become gremlins, they reproduce differently than the little Mogwai originally does, because the Mogwai, there was like a whole pupal stage and the whole business. But the gremlins, he falls in the water, and immediately there's an army of stop-motion animation.
The Mogwai
gremlins.
come out, like, you just don't see that because they become other Mogwai super quick. They just pop off in those little balls.
Right. You're right. But then they turn into, the metamorphosis happens slowly.
Yeah.
So the gremlins don't have a metamorphosis because they don't have they're already in that stage.
Right.
Okay. No, that's a good point. Yeah. You're right. But anyway, I just thought that stop motion animation army of gremlins was hilarious once they do get born.
Oh yeah.
I think the part in terms of like creepiness, the part where she's backing up to the Christmas tree, and suddenly you just see Stripe's eyes, and that sequence. That's chill. It's probably the second to me most, like, you know, I get like little pinpricks on the back of my neck moment in the entire movie.
Yeah.
The first being when Stripe goes at Billy with that chainsaw, because he just looks lethal.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, no puppet has ever been that scary as Stripe is that one.
I have to agree with you there.
That final sequence in Wards, because they have a comedy section before, which is the movie theater, which is another funny sequence just like the bar. And that's hilarious. That's hilarious, but it's pure comedy, you know. And then you have this sequence in Wards, which is basically, now it's mano a mano, it's Highlander, there can be only one, and Zach Galligan is going to take on Stripe. I mean, that's not completely true, because you have Gizmo protecting him in a Barbie convertible, and you have
and
Phoebe Cates trying to turn on the lights, but
and instead turning on the fountain, because that's how useful she is at that moment.
But this is a great sequence. I mean, when you think about it, it's all laid out pretty well. This is all a very, very well constructed sequence, and that puppet is terrifying. You're right. When he takes the chainsaw and he tries to cut through a Louisville Slugger wooden bat that the kid is holding, that's great. You're really worried. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Did not cut easily.
The Gremlins are. Sorry.
No. You're good.
The Gremlins to me are sort of like almost like the how the Joker functions in the Batman universe. Is these things that are simultaneously comical and yet they can turn on a dime and just be absolutely just devious and evil.
Yes. Right. There's no way in heck you could trust them not to like easily kill you if given the chance. Because this is why I think basically they are like agents of chaos. I mean, they're basically demons, and they operate on a folkloric level, and humans. The things that humans are supposed to learn from them is don't unleash them by following the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, you'll unleash all these agents of chaos. And and that makes total sense. No, they can't be relied on. They're gonna do crazy stuff. So yeah, I thought it was very effective. I mean, in a sense, like I say, I've read a lot of like Chinese ghost stories and things like that, and these guys act like a Chinese demon. I could totally see a much crazier version by Sweetheart of this movie.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that
is something we need.
I'd like to see a Tim Burton Gremlins.
But I kind of feel like you've got the Tim Burton Gremlins.
I don't
think it would be that the Tim Burton one would be that different, except it might be even more.
Well, I think
stylized.
Here's the deal. With all due respect to Tim Burton, Julia, what I think you really want is a Tim Burton Gremlins from that era.
Yeah.
Because do you really want Helena Bonham Carter and Johnny Depp fighting the Gremlins? Because
it'd also
be like who's going to do it.
It'd be like 2.5 hours long, and yeah.
But it'll have free makeup, so there you go.
Something else really awesome. All right, that actor who plays the teacher, you guys noticed this, right? That he played that role, this exact role, different name, of course, in Super 8 just this past year.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that was him.
That's the same guy?
That is the same guy. Yes, his name is Glenn Turman.
Holy crap, I did not realize that. That
has to be on purpose, too.
Oh, of course.
I can't convince.
Man, both movies are produced by Steven Spielberg. Yeah. And, Glenn Turman was like a teen star in like Cooley High, and because I saw Cooley High, but I knew him really from Gremlins, but I did not really recognize him again. I mean, I kind of recognized him in Super 8, and then we saw Gremlins last night, and it was like, oh my God, he played the same role in both those movies.
Yeah, that's right.
The go-to high school teacher. Only J.J. Abrams had the thought to make him into like a much more kind of crucial part of the plot. But yeah. So that's the coolest thing in the world. I just thought that was fantastic. Oh,
very cool.
Yeah. So he's still on TV. I don't know what he's like doing a bunch of things right now. So he's basically just that guy who's on like every show, which is what Dick Miller used to be. Dick Miller's dead now, but by the time he had done this movie, he had been in like 1 billion different films. He's the one who played Mr. Futterman, and he. I will always think of Dick Miller as the manservant in The Terror, who engages in like verbal fisticuffs with Jack Nicholson. He was cool. So, is there anything else that we want to hit before we do our wrap up? We're definitely getting close to time, but if there's another part that you wanted to go over, we talked about the mayhem all over town. We talked about the monkey wards sequence.
Oh, by the way, Darren brings up that I was wrong, although it seemed like it, that Critters and Ghoulies were in development before Gremlins. So I guess what we have is like a Dante's Peak volcano kind of thing going on.
Mhm.
Insane.
I guess so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or Deep Impact and whatever the other. What was the other? Like there was all those asteroid movies at the same time.
Yeah. Wow. I guess I should research.
Well, now
but
you've got this universe.
Like, I mean, it seems like.
Well, but they're all coming from E.T. though, because E.T. was had already been out.
You're right.
I still enjoy Critters
E.T.
1
isn't really
a lot.
to me the same genre as this. Like E.T. This is about hordes of terrifying little beasts.
I know, but they still pay homage to E.T. I just think that kind of starts this whole. Plus, it's Steven Spielberg, so I mean, it just starts this whole like. You know,
I can see a point there
creatures.
where, I mean, yeah, you've got to some extent you've got E.T. and so then you've got straight up E.T. ripoffs, and then you've got E.T. variants like evil E.T. and then you've got multiple evil E.T.s. I mean, to be sure, this one is like a whole new wave because they've got all of these freaking creatures. I'm having a hard time thinking of anything other than the Blob that happens where it like covers the whole town, where
well, there's lots of stuff like that, but it's always real stuff like the Kingdom of the Spiders or any of those kind of movies where it's creatures that actually exist in real life that we're all just scared to death.
The closest thing I can think of would almost be more like Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Or something where it's zombies or Last Man on Earth or it's vampires, things like that.
Oh, that's true. Well, and there's also elements, by the way. I mean, I thought of George Powell's War of the Worlds. At the end, when so many things are on fire and the town is just in a shambles. I always loved images like this. Not that I wanted to see my town in a shambles. I'm
gonna interject my endorsement now because it's related to what Drew just said, which is the Night of the Living Dead thing. Jason made me watch Community, which I don't usually watch, but it was this Community episode where they were spoofing on Glee, but also at one point, like, they've all been taken over by this, like, basically they've been taken over by Glee pod people, and so they're all turning into these, Glee people, and one of them at one point just points to another and goes, "Ah!" And it's total Night of the Living Dead, like.
It's a direct lift, actually, of.
I'm sorry, the pod people thing. The.
Yeah. Specifically.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Sorry.
The invasion of the 1970s Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Right.
Holy mackerel! I mean, I know that this is basically a horror show, but maybe we can find some weaselly way to do Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
The Spielberg vein through this has made me kind of want to do both Jaws and Jurassic Park, which are only tangentially horror, but I think close enough to where we might be able to grandfather.
Yeah, I mean, my whole introduction says that it is general awesomeness, and and we take our cue from Castle Dracula, which would do. Castle Frankenstein, which would do like anything interesting. Yeah. So. Okay. I know now I need to ask for final thoughts because we're definitely up on the hour. All right. I guess going in the reverse order that we did, Julia, final thoughts on Gremlins, and then we'll go around again to get people's suggestions for the week. People's
I'm left with two of my favorites shots, basically. One is the Gremlins caroling. That was just beautiful, hilarious. They're just so funny. So I love that they're singing and they're looking at music and caroling with their little, I think even they might even be wearing Victorian outfits at that point. That was hysterical. And then, but the last shot of Mr. Miyagi, as I called him, I don't know what his actual name was, walking off with Gizmo in his little cage into the whatever backdrop that they have painted of the town, and but somehow they've managed to superimpose it with with drifting clouds. That is so beautiful. That was such a neat shot. So those were kind of my favorite things to walk away from this time around. Walk away from Gremlins with.
Let's see, Tonemeister. What are your final thoughts on
I still like now that I have it on Blu-ray, I plan on this is going into the rotation along with Rare Exports, which I'm hoping we have time to do because I really like that movie a lot.
Maybe we can figure out a way to do it before the end of the year.
Man, I like it. It's so good.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's, oh man, I mean, so much good stuff. Gremlins, I don't know. I could go on and on. It's just awesome, and it's great to watch it again. And yeah, I wish it showed more often. I know, luckily I live in a town with Alamo Drafthouse, and I'm hoping maybe next year I'll have to see it in the theater again because that would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, yeah. Well, Drew, I need to get your final thoughts on Gremlins.
Final thoughts on Gremlins. I don't know what to repeat that I hadn't already said with my introduction. It's just, it's a classic for a reason. It's not only just a holiday classic or a horror classic. I feel like this is a quintessential 1980s. Like if you were to go back and say like do a film class about 1980s cinema, I feel like this is one of the movies.
Oh yeah, because the other thing, and I totally forgot. Sorry to horn in. Is like when you're saying that, what struck me also is Billy. Like he could be a Hughes character as well. Like you could put John Cusack in that role, and it would be like ultimate 80s. Like I just wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, what a great box set that would be. Actually, the ultimate 80s box set. That would be fantastic.
And I think
yes, that would be awesome.
This definitely would be in it. I mean, this is a quintessential 80s movie.
All right. My final thoughts. This is a great horror movie, but it's the kind of horror movie that if you have a kid who is like, 12 or 13, it's one that you could watch with them just to freak them out, but they wouldn't be that freaked out. I mean, there is nothing in here that is anywhere near as disturbing as anything in Singularity or any number of like new games that are violent. This is a lightweight movie as far as like disturbing violence goes, but it is great. It's really, really magical. I love it. It's a wonderful Christmas flick. Just like one of the Halloween movies that we saw earlier, the Trick or Treat, the anthology, that was just one of my favorite Halloween movies. This is one of my favorite Christmas films. Absolutely. It'd be a really great thing to watch right next to It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah, no, it would. So that's it. And my only endorsement this week, whatever else I was planning on, I've lost my notes. So my only endorsement is totally Sherlock, BBC, coming back very soon. So if you haven't seen Benedict Cumberbatch playing Sherlock in the re-envisioning that the BBC's been doing, you can catch them on Netflix, and it's really fantastic. So that's me. Julia, do you have an endorsement?
I just did mine. It was that episode of Community.
Oh, of course.
You told me about.
Yes. Oh, wait, I have one more. Dick Miller, still alive. All right. Sorry if I said that he was dead, and I don't remember if I said that, but if I said that he was dead, Mr. Miller, I'm sorry. You can kick my ass. I have no doubt.
Run you over with a snowplow. You better watch.
Dick Miller will bury you, Jason Henderson.
That's right.
Dick Miller will like cover me in plaster, like in that movie where he was.
No, he'll just have to come. He'll just have to tweet. No, he'll just have to tweet out that he's still out there, because that's what always happens with like famous people who people say have died. They're like, I'm still alive. Everybody chill out. Stop calling me.
I'm not completely certain that Dick Miller is on Twitter, but
I'm saying.
You never know. All right.
Certainly not I tell you what, it's certainly not on one of those foreign gadgets.
Right.
From Japan.
With gremlins in them.
That's right.
Oh, boy. Yeah, Tony, your endorsements.
A couple. Actually, we have my band, Deserts of Mars, which you can find us on Facebook and desertsofmars.com. We have our final show of the year, if you're in Austin and happen to be listening to this, at Trophies, which we haven't played in a while. So it's going to be a pretty cool night. We got a bunch of friends playing, and it should be pretty rocking. It's our holiday, Christmas, whatever you want to call it, final show of the year. And also, oh, by the way, at Benumathon, I guess now it looks like people are telling people that we actually did see Cabin in the Woods, and we can't say anything about it except the hyperbole that you may have heard or seen or had people. Yes, as a horror fan, see this movie. That's about all I can say. Right.
Outstanding.
And evidently, we were supposed to not say stuff, but then I look on Anticool and people are saying, "Hey, we saw that movie," so I'm guessing it's okay. I hope that nobody's mad if I say that. But
so we saw Cabin Fever in a special preview, actually in the woods many years ago. Better than Cabin Fever.
But Cabin in the Woods, horror fans, you need to see it. Like, the trailers don't do it justice. Put it that way.
All right.
See that
Outstanding.
I don't know. It's probably I don't know how many months until it comes out. But
April? I'm looking it up right now. It says it comes out in April.
Well,
so there you go.
Go see that.
Okay. All right. Hey, Chris Hemsworth is in that. Very cool. Drew, endorsement?
I also have a couple, but primarily I would like to endorse Scream 4, which just came out on DVD. I was probably one of the only people I know that liked it. I felt like it was unfairly bashed by both critics and fans. I found it to be a lot of fun and a much better conclusion to the series than Scream 3. And if you are, have any warm, fuzzy memories of that series from when you were younger back in the 1990s, I think you would get a kick out of it. So that's my non-self-centered endorsement this week. My self-centered endorsement is that I just updated my website with a new webcomic. It is House of Wolves Part 1. It is the last Halloween Man comic of 2011. Part 2 will be, of course, up in January, and it will be 2012. But it's a good one. Drop by, read it, let me know what you think. Send me the fan mail or the hate mail, whichever. Anyway, that's at HalloweenMan.com.
Excellent.
Very, very cool. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm so happy that this is probably it's our 21st or 22nd show.
Really?
So I cannot believe that we've been doing this as long as we have. It's sort of amazing. So, yeah, if we get lucky, we'll manage to get one more Christmas episode in before the end of the year.
New Year, anyway.
Yeah. So, thanks, everybody, and I promise to talk to you. Wait, hang on. I can give you the actual numbers. It looks like this is actually officially number 18. There's a couple of, practice things in there. So this is officially episode 18. So we're not quite to 20 yet. Hard to believe. All right. If we don't talk again before Christmas, have a fantastic Christmas. Otherwise, we'll see you very soon with Rare Imports.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Thanks, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
See ya.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.